17 Permick Central. And the reasons why I'm running are pretty well known. I've been one who has talked about the fact that too many of our people have been ignored. They've been making promises that they've not kept. And the issue around Belco in this constituency is also one that is front and center on people's concerns. Within the government itself, you've had 5 or 6 years where people have been in the caucus. Mr. Keynes, you had the Jason Hayward, of course, who's the candidate here as well. And nothing's been done. Meanwhile, the residents of the constituency have been hard done by the fact that the pollution and the emissions that have been routine and blackened their lives, if not their houses, and affected their children, continues. I just think that we need to have change in leadership now. I'm running as an independent. I believe in the independent movement, and I'm not alone. I believe there are a number of independents that are going to be running. Some have already announced, and there'll be more to come. Bermuda, it's overdue for a change in terms of the political order that we've been living under for so long. And we think that the independent candidate route is the way to begin that process.
Commission, one might say, 4 years ago, you were part of this same organization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What has changed with you to give a different outlook?
Well, I think it's changed for me. When you go back to 7 years ago, in the 2000, well, going on 8 years ago, in the 2017 election, there were a lot of items on the agenda then, right, in terms of the party's platform, some of which I contributed to, that would have materially improved the lives of Bermudians. 8 years later now, and most, if not all of them, have not been implemented. Although you will hear on the ads they're running that, oh, they are promising that this time they're going to deliver. I don't think Bermudians want to trust that. We see a rise of a political culture, what I call political cannibalism, people who are more concerned with garnering prestige and status as opposed to serving the interests of Bermuda. That's not what I believe in. That's not what the PLP I grew up in believed in. And I think it's time for a change. But both parties represent the status quo. So you have what I call respectability politics, which means that it's not a politician who's courteous, who's nice to everyone, who helps old ladies cross the street. It means you have a politician who invariably will always defer to the status quo. That status quo is not serving the interests of the broad cross-section of Bermudians. Rampant inflation, high cost of living. We've been number one in terms of cost of living for the last 7 or 8 years. Globally, number one in the world. People are really hurting. And when they're not having their needs met.
One might say your departure was a bit of controversy. What have you learned from that? What might you say to the people of Bermuda?
Well, what I've learned is that you have to be very careful about who you trust. And I think that was a big lesson for me. Because, again, when you have people who would weaponize, use these types of controversies as a political weapon to pursue their own agenda, it just sent a big lesson to me. And I think I've learned my lesson.
Yesterday, your PLP incumbent, Jason Hayward, released a list of 50 reasons why voters should vote for the PLP. How do you plan to counter that message and convince voters to choose you instead?
If I'm not mistaken, I haven't seen the document. What I've been told reliably that it was really an effort to convince younger voters, am I off base here, to vote. But at the same time, you've had Hayward in support of the premier, who have gone to great lengths to ensure that they reduce the ability of Bermudians to participate in the vote, particularly our young voters who are overseas. And you'll see a lot of young people right now. That's been a major issue. They're very unhappy. So, while talking about the issue of voting, and they are actually trying to deny the right to vote. And I think it's harming our democracy rather than making it better for everyone.
Secondly, the OBA is concerned that votes for the independents and the FDN will only serve to split consolidate the PLP in power. How do you see it?
That's conventional wisdom, but we're in an unconventional time. And for me, I think that we are at a point now where both the OBA, the PLP, and the independent movement candidates are going to start off at the same point when the bell finally rings on election day. I think polls are showing that the PLP vote has really cratered. They are increasingly unpopular from the premier down, and now it's spread through the whole government and the party itself. I'm not saying that they are a spent force, but certainly they are not going to have it all their own way this time. If you notice, even globally, the amount of incumbents that have failed or lost in elections in 1924, it was a seminal, extraordinary year for elections around the world. The ANC, for example, lost its majority. Modi in India lost his majority. They had to form coalition governments. Canada is probably going to end up in the same place. We already know that Trudeau has resigned. That has been the norm over the last year plus, then the exception. I contend we're at that point in Bermuda too. And to put that against the backdrop of the massive global changes that are happening, Bermuda's not going to be immune to that, whether it's politically or economically. Longitudinally, in terms of analysis, I also truly believe that the political and constitutional order that Bermuda established in the 60s has run its course, and that it's time for a major change.
Good afternoon, Mr. Commissiong.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah.
First of all, why have you chosen to stand in Pembroke Centre? You could have had your pick of any constituency, really. Is it specifically because of the Belko issue?
No, well, Balco is part of it, but also, you know, my family has roots here, like many of us in Bermuda here. Balco is part of it. Jason Hayward has been at the forefront of economic development at a time when we think that his job has been one that he has not been up to. And I believe that people will increasingly see that Bermuda is on a pathway to where you're getting what I would essentially call gentrification. So we know who's coming in, right? But who's going out is another problem. The other day you had an interview with op-ed written by Mr. Clinton Lambert. He's blind. And he talked about that there are 3 generations of women in his family who essentially had to leave Bermuda because they couldn't afford to live here anymore. So while they speak about economic growth and claim that they have produced economic growth, we also think, in our view, they are remiss in this way, that they haven't fostered enough economic development. And that a lot of Bermudians are getting the short end. Working poor, middle class is eroding. What do they have to show for their 7-8 years now since the 2017 election? I don't think that they've done a great job at all. And it's been disappointing.
You say that Mr. Hayward's not up to the job. In terms of the Belko issue, how would you do things differently? And in terms of the economy, how would you do things differently?
Well, in terms of the Belko issue, we know that Mr. Hayward and Mr. Keynes, of course, the premier, have been sitting in caucus for the last 5 years. Why isn't it resolved? Why have they apparently put the interest of Belko and its foreign owners ahead of Bermudians, particularly the Bermudians here, who are seeing their property values decline? They have seen they're having to use bottled water by the ton because they can't trust the waters that are in the tank. And if you've been in Bermuda long enough, you know, tank water has been something that, in terms of our culture, that is so embedded in us. Our pride in knowing, and maybe now nostalgia to some degree, that we could always depend on water in our tank. That's not the case around here. And like I said, the other thing is the plummeting of the property values. It's undoubted.
And one final question, Mr. Commissiong. You're here with Sir John,
Mm-hmm.
and also Mr. Bean, who ran as an independent candidate in Sands North in October.
Mm-hmm.
To what extent are you all independent? Are you not sort of all cut from the same cloth, and you're in effect an independent party, if you like?
Well, this is not just like the PLP is not your grandfather's or father's PLP. I would say that this independent movement is not your grandfather's independence or independent movement. I don't even think we had such a thing then. All of us have come together because we share the same vision, to some extent, of what is happening in Bermuda and how we have to join hands to change things here. It doesn't mean that we're a party. It just means that we're a coalition with the same interest to change Bermuda for the better.
Mm-hmm. My last question. What are you going to do different under the independent candidate than as a part of the Progressive Labour Party government that you work?
Well, compared to what we've seen with the Progressive Labour Party government, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I think we bring a lot of new voices and intelligence and talent to the public domain. And as you will see when they are being rolled out, I can safely say that I am not alone. You've already seen a number of candidates being rolled out, and it's a very, very dynamic group of people. While our opponents will call us, Swan's party or something like that, it's ridiculous. We're not a party, but we are coming together, pooling resources to ensure that we can have an effective challenge against the established parties and the status quo they represent in Bermuda.
Lastly, second last question. The naysayers might say you have an axe to grind.
Mm-hmm.
Due to your departure.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have an axe to grind. You know what it is? Like I said a few minutes ago, that all of those progressive items, public policies, many of which I was at the forefront of in 2017, as I'll repeat again, that were designed to materially improve the lives of our working poor and our eroding middle class. After 8 years, it hasn't been done. Most of it. You might say education, incomplete grade. But that's what I've got an axe to grind about. And I've always been committed to the least of us as opposed to the privileged. And I'm not changed, and I will not change from that stand. You're welcome. Huh? Okay, well, thank you.